So after we finished the podcast with Kevin on climate change alternative theories, we had this whole deal in Canada with the crazy temperatures of 49 degrees. So I thought it would be fitting that we get him back on the show to share more information and some slides based on his research on this topic. Without further ado, here goes the Nikos show. So Kevin, back by popular demand, I had such great feedback from your last show. You need no introduction. We've had a bit of events happen since our last podcast, namely in Canada, Littleton. So on you go, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Nikos, and I'm glad to be here. Right, so I wanted to go back to question some of the data issues that people have brought up, and also discuss a record temperature in Canada. And this was in a smaller town, Lytton, and the temperature there was about 4.5 degrees Celsius higher than their average temperature, which is a lot. And so I wanted to put that in perspective and ask some questions about these high temperatures that we have, and whether or not we're getting a theoretical confirmation of the greenhouse gas theory, or whether this is just anomalies that should be expected. And so it's all about restoring the integrity of the climate science. And so just again, for new listeners, my background, I have a degree in mechanical and aerospace engineering from Cornell University. Importantly, I developed a broad-based new epistemological theory and a theory of validation, which is an improved scientific method, which I brought to this task. This theoretical work was validated in commercial artificial intelligence software used by major companies and offered and subject to an acquisition offer by a global 100 tech firm. But anyhow, so I'm operating with a bit of better intellectual tools. So when I wanted to validate my theory of validation, I said, well, I had some issues with the climate science and the global warming theory, which has now become climate change. As a lot of people will say, climate change has been on for millions of years. So we're going to show the data supporting that point, and we'll also talk about some of the different data sources that we have. So basically, in Lytton, we have a big temperature increase. And so I want to start by looking at, this is a slide of the record highest temperatures by state in the US. So we have, trying to be current here. And so this is some of the data that I found. And if we go down this list, they're a little bit small, the numbers here, but we can see, so we're looking at 49 Celsius up in Canada. So we get 57 in California back in 1913. We get 48 in Idaho, 48 in Iowa. So trying to stick with maybe some closer and latitude regions. Nebraska 48 in 1936, Nevada 1994 we had a 52. We have let me see some other ones. So this is what, first of all, I'm saying let's take a step back and look at the data, and to see what kind of high temperatures that we have, to putting that 49.6 degrees in perspective. You have South Dakota here at 49 degrees in 2006. And you have 1961 in Washington, 48 degrees. Wyoming, 46 degrees in 83, and Wisconsin, 1936 at 46 degrees. So we have, when you look across the United States as a comparison on the same continent anyways, and you look down the list of dates, basically 1925, 1915, 1994, 1936, 1913, or 2019, 1995, 1930, 1930, 1931, goes on. The majority of these look to be in the 1930s. I don't want to say majority, but almost a majority. We can judge that later. But then some 1911, 1994 seems to be a warm year. Yeah, it looks like a few temperatures from 1994.
52 in Nevada, sheesh.
What's that?
52 degrees in Nevada, 1990.
Yeah. I was recently in Dubai. I mean, and the temperatures in the 50s are common. So this is the Earth. Okay, so we have temperatures all over the place, and so I don't want to belittle the Litten data. Again, that was an extraordinary temperature. I also have another graph, and I couldn't think I included, but I wanted to. Nonetheless, let's look a little bit about. Let's look at sources of data. And to see, so there we have disparate data sources, 550 million years of data, and shows us where our temperature is in this longer aspect. So we just looked at the 50 states in the last 150 years, 120, 30 years. And now we're looking at 500 million years to see that we're at a historically low temperature on Earth. Now, Berkeley Earth Project, they've gone and done data analysis, and from 1750, on the left side of the graph is all the black lines there. That's their work, and then so they've added onto NOAA's, NASA, and another one had Crew. And they basically are seeing a temperature increase, but they have some fuzzy lines on the left. So this data, if you go and look at their sources of data and their methodology, they're massaging the data. There's other sources. I'm going to jump down here. So this is straight data from the U.S. Data source, I think NOAA. He's showing a trend downward, and this is 2020 on the right side and 1900 on the left side. So that's a different source of data. Again, so I want to. I think when we start talking about data, we have to be really open-minded when we say so. So Tony's data is straight out of the records, okay? Berkeley data is massaged. Bert's Rutan says that this is the historical data, okay? So this data is from the National Climatic Data Center in the U.S. So basically, we have to put it in perspective as one thing, and then we have to look at the different sources of data as another thing. This is from 1974, a high point of data in the 1940s. And when we look over here, we don't see the same graph on a 2019 data from NOAA, I think that is. So we see a high at 1940, 1950. We see a high on 2019 over here on the right side. So basically, it depends on when you look. In 1974, the National Center for Atmospheric Research in the U.S. says that the high temperatures were in the 1940s and 50s, and that we're in a global cooling. That was showing the same organizations. Basically national data centers or national climate centers showing a decline in temperatures in the latter part of the 20th century, whereas the newer data doesn't show that. It shows an increase in and it relegates the data. So we have massage data, and we have unadulterated and earlier versions of this from the same organizations. So we got to start questioning the data. The forces and the powers that be are altering the data in order to conform to a theory. That's what's being suggested when we start to look at the various data sources, both from a historical perspective and from an origin. Okay, so we look at the right in the bottom right corner of this graph. We show unadulterated U.S. government data. Above, we say altered data. Then we have on the left U.S. government data from a different time period in 1974. So we have to ask ourselves: Are we getting a straight presentation of data? So a lot of questions about the data. The data should not be altered fundamentally. If we're going to massage the data, I think you really have to put the actual data on a chart in the presentation always. If you're going to modify it, you can put an asterisk and say how you modified it and why, or a bandwidth designation. So you've got to do that, and it's not right to change data and not put the original data. Okay, so those are questions that I would ask. Now, again, back to the Canadian temperature data. I would definitely say that we have a high temperature in that region. But we also had some record lows in this last week in New Mexico. So that's So when people say, so what my work has done, I'm going to switch down to the next slide here.
So you could have a historic low because more of the energy is, in a sense, being concentrated on a single plot of the planet. It's not the whole planet that's heating up.
Yeah, that's one of the pictures I wanted to show you. And to be frank, I don't have it on this today, sadly. But nonetheless,
we can do another one on Monday or something as well, or something.
Yeah, I think when we do that on Monday, I'll come back and show the current data around the globe, and how, yes, in a particular location in the northwest of North America, we had a region of high data of highs, where in other parts of North America, you had a region of record lows, actually, some record lows. And so we have to, when we look at data, first of all, we need unadulterated data. We cannot assume that modern scientists have more integrity than past scientists. It would be an unjustified assumption. We can say that our current technology is advanced, but then there's a question of, has the temperature, have thermometers changed fundamentally? And they haven't. If we cannot go back in time and question we can't just make big modifications in the representation or in the data without presenting it. So those things suggest misrepresentation in the more current data in order to fit a theory which looks to have a political motive behind it. I've mentioned this before. The political motive looks to be of a Marxist origin. The capitalism and the Industrial Revolution caused global warming. Okay, so they therefore capitalism is bad. So that's the simplistic argument. So in order to justify that reasoning, they had them alter the data. That's what it looks like. Okay, and just to be clear, if they're trying, Marxism is a pseudoscience. It's basically justifies the confiscation of people's property. So it's sort of crooks who want to rob the property of others. Now we can talk about the ownership of property having its historical origins in feudal states, which were, so basically they were all, feudal states were groups of ultimately warring groups who fought each other for ownership of territory. And then the people would then live in these areas with the powers over that territory. And they were subject to the laws and rules of those areas. And so so with the rise of the respective individual rights in the end of the 18th century, then we started to have greater liberties, and then we see the explosion of wealth creation by individuals and the rise of the middle classes through the mid 20th century. So that's sort of the backdrop on the politics that could be influencing the discussions about science and about climate science in particular. So these are really important things. And like I said, my motive was to demonstrate the advantage of a new scientific method, a systematic method of assessing the validity of ideas. I've written a book on it called Validating Ideas under my under Kevin Alexanderman. But the idea of, as my pseudonym, so which sort of is questionable whether I should be using the two of them. But the fact of the matter is, when we have a means of assessing the validity of ideas systematically, that basically allows us to challenge existing theories more easily and capably.
So when you mentioned recently the politic motive, I'm just so surprised on the news, like how quickly people are coming on saying, experts are saying this is global warming. But this event where you have this high pressure dome and other cooler parts of the country, it could be a combination of smaller unfortunate events that can cause this accident in an atmosphere where, like a car accident, it's usually small things going wrong at the same time, which can cause, freak events like tornadoes in Czech Republic,
Yeah. No, I hear you. The basically, they want to conclude that an anomaly is caused by human anthropogenic warming. Okay, so that's the idea. But when we step back and look at the data from an overview perspective, where it's unjustified because the planet hasn't been warming. There is an anomaly, but anomalies occurring all the time in different parts of the world. In terms to jump on the bandwagon, it does suggest that it's a politically motivated
I'm basically
global warming.
I'm basically trying to stay on the fence as long as possible, because the alternative is well, both alternatives are equally as bad. We do have global warming, or there is an agenda and people are forcing this global warming down our throat. So, I mean, I'm holding onto the fence as tightly as I can. But if people don't give me good arguments against what you're arguing, then I'm leaning more and more towards this is a whole big scam.
Well, I'm trying to be objective, focus on the data, the integrity of the data sources, and then the validity of the theory. And so when I talk about the political issues, so again, I don't want to overemphasize the political. What we're trying to do is ask ourselves, is there a justification for influencing the data or modifying the data? And this is basically saying, is corruption in governance occurring to invalidate science, which is a big threat, to be frank. And so that's why I don't want to have a politicized view myself. I only want to understand the forces that could be affecting the science that we have of today. Using Galileo's example, Galileo challenged the Vatican's endorsement of Aristotle. Aristotle said that heavier objects fell faster. So Galileo, using the timepiece of the time, the invention of the clocks, he was able to time various objects rolling down inclined planes and very capably time them with better instrumentation. And this began the rise of science. But he told us that data drives theories, not endorsements. Okay, so that was the beginning of science. Yeah, endorsements are not science. The Vatican endorsed Aristotle. The majority of the scientists of his time were conforming to the Vatican in Western Europe, and so this is what, or in Europe. And so so science began when we said, no, it's not the endorsements of others. It's not the consensus. It is the data that drives our theories. Theories have to be challenged when the data does not confirm them. When we start to see people adjusting the data, we have to ask why. If they adjust the data, have good reason, okay. But if they don't include the original data and explain their adjustment on every representation of it, then we've got to ask, are you guys being forthright? And scientists have no more integrity on a per capita basis than the rest of the world. So we can't assume that just because someone is in the academic community, they have more integrity than a man on the street or a
Yeah,
person on the
look at the
street.
scientists in like Mendele in the death camps of Austria, Poland.
Exactly right. So every individual stands on his own integrity. And so it doesn't matter whether he's a scientist with 14 degrees or 4 degrees or whatever. It doesn't make any difference. It's about being forthright and accurate in your representation of reality, and being sincere in your attempt to endeavor valid abstractions and valid theoretical representations of reality. So it's about character and integrity. The individual has a role, and individual liberty in freedom of expression are means by which we advance our understanding of the world. And so we need to challenge and always be challenging the representations that are made about data, the data origins. And if we see that people are not properly qualifying their data and that they're altering it, then we have to say, well, maybe there are ulterior motives. If we don't ask what those ulterior motives are, then we're not doing the full job. We need to question all the reasons why people might be changing it, whether there is something wrong, because the world is full of people that are doing things dishonestly. And in institutions as well as in the private sector and individuals, there's good people and bad in all areas of the world, and we just have to be frank and reasonable about how we judge the views that are prevalent. We should always be looking mostly like Galileo data and asking, does this view that's being presented confirm or corroborate if the data corroborates the views? So that's
totally.
like I said, I want to
Science 101, really.
Right. Now, so just this slide is about, it says it's about thermal energy storage. So aerospace and mechanical engineers in particular we study thermodynamics and heat transfer. So the climate science they study a lot of other things. You might have oceanographers or biologists, or you have climate science meteorologists. So you have all different backgrounds in the climate science field, but all climate scientists should be familiar with heat transfer theory. The primary of heat transfer, this is basic stuff, and for climate scientists are conduction, convection, and radiation. Okay, these are we get conduction. The molecules are bumping up to one another and transferring energy via velocity exchanges, momentum exchanges. That's conduction. Convection is where where molecules are flowing in a gas and distributing heat in that manner. And then radiation, which is electromagnetic
Sorry, I lost the last 10 seconds when you got up to radiation.
Yeah, okay.
So people don't want us to record this, man.
Yeah, that's right. It's a little tough. So then there is radiation, which is electromagnetic transmission of thermal energy. Okay, so those three forms of energy transmission have to all be discussed. In the atmosphere, I think, and others have agreed, that its primary method of energy transfer in the atmosphere is when the sun heats the earth in the boundary layer near the soil or the ocean. The boundary layer of the air is heated by conduction, and then convection takes the heat from the boundary layer and brings it up and mixes it in the atmosphere. And this is what happens every day. It's the primary means of energy transfer from solar energy. Now, I've also explained a radiation perspective. Solar energy warms the planet primarily through nitrogen and oxygen absorbing thermal energy in what's called Rayleigh scattering, which is photons increasing the velocity of the 99% of the atmosphere, which is nitrogen and oxygen. And so these photons transfer momentum because, as per the standard model of physics, the photons interact with nitrogen and oxygen molecules, and in so doing transfer momentum and increase their speed. Now, and per the kinetic theory of gases, it is the speed of the molecules and absorb bandwidth.
Yeah, I lost that in 10 seconds today. That is amazing. I never had so much audio problems in a recording.
Basically, right. What I'm trying to explain here is the CO₂ and the so-called greenhouse gases do indeed absorb particular bandwidths of solar energy. But as I said, those bandwidths have already been shifted by Rayleigh scattering, and much of the energy has already been absorbed through Rayleigh scattering before it's absorbed by the greenhouse gases. And the greenhouse gases, for particular CO₂, is only a less than 0.04%. And so it has a very small role on a quantitative basis in thermal energy storage, which is a real issue when we talk about the atmosphere. Now, on the background of this slide is a picture of a storm cloud. Well, this is water vapor. Okay, so it is a greenhouse gas. Water vapor definitely has a big role in thermal energy storage and the temperature of the planet. So if we have more storms clouds, we are going to have a lower temperature Earth. But these things are all pale in when you relative to the primary issue that I'll be presenting in a forthcoming book, which is that the globe cools so quickly that our focus on carbon dioxide and this tiny absorption is literally foolhardy. We are silly to think that CO₂ is a substantial store of thermal energy, and it doesn't really have any effect on our climate, other than, as I said before, as a photosynthetic endothermic reaction, which is the basis of all life, and it tends to cool the Earth, as does water vapor. But anyway, so like I said, we're gonna have to end this for now. We can discuss it more on Monday or on the next episode here.
Okay, Kevin, thanks very much for your time. I only have to run off there, but I'll get these slides up and people can think about them, and we'll keep the conversation going because it's such an important conversation. Thanks very much again, Kevin.
Okay.
Hope you have a good day.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye. Okay, thanks everybody for watching. That was Kevin Kirchman, and we are focusing on the climate because this pretty much there's no bigger question right now as we sort of come out of the whole COVID thing. And yeah, so here we go. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.